Hi, I'm Matthew Kilby, and welcome to Fort Dorchester Percussion Online. Today we're going to be talking about grip. First, we're going to break down the most basic grip that you would use if you were playing the concert snare drum, or if you're just standing and playing a snare drum. So I would recommend that you grab a Vic Firth SD1. These sticks are friendly to start with, and really they're good for even an advanced player because there's no extra counterweight, right? There's no weight in the front of the stick that feels funny. In the back, the taper is about as bland as it gets, and there's a round bead. It's great for teaching you, okay, what is my hand doing, and how does that affect the sound directly? Now, there's some sticks with a fancier taper or a longer, like reverse teardrop bead that have weight that makes it a little bit easier for you to play certain repertoire. But it's always great to practice with SD1s. SD1s are a basic stick. Basic doesn't mean bad. It just means that the weight is easily controllable because you know the implement that you're working with. All right, so grab your SD1 and you're going to put your thumb on that Vic Firth American flag. So you can see the flag right there. Put your thumb on the stick, right? Make sure that your thumb is relaxed. It shouldn't be elongated. We don't want any caveman style. You're not trying to pick up a ride, right? So your thumb is relatively relaxed, and then you're going to wrap the first knuckle of your index finger sort of around the stick, right? So it's going to look like this, kind of like you're pinching your nose, right? So that you can feel, you should be able to control the amount of pressure that you put on that American flag between the first knuckle of your index finger and the full pad of your thumb. Not the tip of your thumb isn't laying flat, right? The pad, the front pad of your thumb. So then your fingers are going to kind of curl around the stick naturally from there, right? I recommend, depending on how long your fingers are, going ahead and wrapping your index finger around so that you have this sort of T, I don't know what you would call this. There's only a little bit of space on the other side between my index finger and my thumb, right? So you're really pinching that bad boy. And then you're going to wrap your fingers so that the stick flows naturally through, I would call, the center of your hand. So a lot of common mistakes and variations that I see are when the stick is flat and then the fingers are flat and then the player plays like this and the angle of their stick is compromised and it's kind of funny to bend their wrist, right? And then the other variation is the stick is too far into your fingers and that forces you to rotate your whole wrist kind of sideways instead of thinking up and down. So if your wrist is in your fingers, then rotating your hand up and down is going to give you this thing, which is kind of unnatural. If your stick is too far in, your fingers are going to become flat and you're going to lose control. So natural curvature of your fingers, see how my pinky is wrapped around and not necessarily flat, right? You got that full wrap around, is going to give you full finger control, and it's going to enable you to play up and down when you move your wrist, right? So your wrist is just doing this, but the stick is coming up and down with your hand, and you get the full finger control. It's beautiful. That is the grip that we dream of, right? Here it is. This kind of thing. And if you open your fingers, this kind of thing. Notice how my fingers are never leaving my stick, right? And my pinky is elongated when I use my fingers, but there's still kind of a natural curvature around. And keeping those back fingers around the stick are going to allow you to turn from the wrist, because this is sort of a pivot point, right? You have multiple fulcrums in your hand that will put different amounts of back pressure on the stick. That's going to allow you to control the bounces that happen at the front of the stick, right? But the widest pivot point is going to be at your wrist, right? Which is still in effect if you're just holding with your back fingers. So that's what I call back fulcrum. Back fulcrum means it's coming from your wrist completely, and you're holding on with the back of your hand and not with the front. So this is front fulcrum, where I'm turning my wrist, right? But it's only moving that front pinch point of my hand. The movement in my wrist isn't happening at the same time as the bead would hit the drum, right? So it's kind of an awkward 2-point fulcrum that's not going to give me the kind of immediate response I need. Whereas that back fulcrum, as soon as I turn, the bead makes contact, right? So that's what we're going to call our differentiation between front fulcrum and back fulcrum. And this video has been a breakdown of your grip. The only thing that you need next is, depending on the natural angle that the stick makes in your hands, different people have different anatomy. I think it would be a little crass and presumptuous of me to say that there needs to be some sort of precise angle that you measure, but it's roughly going to look like a pizza slice, right? So it's not so wide that it's a 90-degree angle, right? You wouldn't see that right angle square right here for you geometry folks. It's a little bit more narrow, and that's going to allow your shoulders to relax and give you a little bit more finger access, right? Cool. That should cover your basic mechanics of your grip. There's certainly something I glossed over, and there are a lot of variations on grip out there. We haven't talked about how your grip would change for timpani versus mallets versus snare drum and sort of the traditions that go behind that. But this is a basic starter grip that you can use for every instrument, right? This is what I would go ahead and use for snare drum, timpani, marimba, until we get to the specific mechanics that you might want to tweak a little bit on each of those instruments. All right, well, I hope this has been informative. Thanks for checking it out. All right, bye.